Hi, welcome to Grey Horse Yoga. So today I wanted to introduce some poses to you. All of them will probably be very familiar to you, but the sequence that we're going to do can help a lot with calming the body and the mind. You know, we have a tendency to have stress in our life, whatever kind that can be for anybody. And forward bends in yoga are very calming for the body, and especially when you combine forward bends with focus on the breath. The breath, that deep breath, can also be a very calming influence on the body and the mind. So we're going to work through a series today of forward bends that again can help to calm the body. So I have some props here. I have a blanket I'm sitting on, an additional blanket, a couple blocks, a chair. You can use a cushion off of your sofa, anything that's firm, folded up towel. You can use for, if you don't have a solid chair, you can rest your hands on a solid piece of furniture, entertainment center, mounting block, fence. I could use my deck railing here if I like, but just some support for these forward bends. So we're going to start first basic forward bend. I'm going to show you a couple of variations of child pose Balasana. So I'm going to come to all fours, and I'm going to have my blanket here today for a little assist. So as I'm on all fours, I'm going to place my blanket over top of my heels and calves, and then I'm going to take a nice inhale. And as I exhale, I'm going to send my hips back towards my heels and let the forehead release down to the mat. So this is where if you have a yoga block or even a stack of books, you can let your head rest there. So child pose, again, anytime we take a forward bend, we close the angle of the body, we flex the body. It can be very calming for the nervous system. So just focus on your breathing, just gentle inhales and exhales in and out of the nose. You can close the eyes if you'd like, or just think of keeping a little soft focus down towards your mat. So in addition to being calming for the body, this is also a nice stretch for the lower back and the length of the spine. And again, if you have any knee sensitivity, you can snug your blanket in up a little closer behind the knees to take any little pressure away from the knees. You can also do this seated in a chair with another chair in front of you, reaching your hands forward. So you're taking that forward bend, taking the pressure off of the knees. Couple more breaths here. And then as you take your next inhale, press into the hands, and we're going to inhale and come all the way back up to that table pose. And then for this next variation, just go ahead and move your blanket off to the side, out of the way. And this time we're going to take a wide knee child pose. So big toes together, knees towards the outside edges of the mat, hands towards the outside edges. And again, send your hips back towards your heels. Let the forehead release down. Again, you can use a block support. You can let your head rest on your hands, either making flat hands or making fists with the hands. And again, if you're having pressure in the knees, by all means bring that blanket back in behind the knees, or again, you can do this seated in a chair. So this is a little deeper stretch for the lower back. Again, focus on your breath and breathing. Another inhale and exhale. And then pressing into the hands, let's come back again to our table pose. And then we're just come up to a standing position. So just however you need to get up from the mat. And now I'm going to bring my chair in. And again, you can use any solid piece of furniture, but make sure it is something like this is a lighter weight chair, so make sure all of the feet are on my mat so it does not slide. So we're going to start with a variation of a standing forward bend. So sometimes we're a little tight again in the back or the hamstrings, back of the legs. So starting with a half standing forward bend, I'm going to come into my mountain pose with my feet hip distance apart. I'm going to bend my knees, hinge at the hip. So we want to keep this nice length in the back. And I'm just going to let my hands rest on whatever support that is. Again, you can, if you look forward at my deck railing there, I could have my hands on the deck railing, but I'm just going to let the crown of the head lengthen towards my hands and just take, again, starting with this half standing forward bend or variation of half standing forward bend. And again, we've closed the angle of the body. So again, this is very calming for the mind. Focus on your breath and breathing. And again, we're keeping the knees bent here because we're not going to overstress the hamstrings. A lot of times if your hamstrings are tight, it rounds the lower back, and we want to think more of length in the lower back in this pose particularly. And then if you'd like, second variation, more of our full standing forward bend. And again, if this feels perfect for you, just stay with the hands resting on something. Otherwise, let yourself fold a little further forward. Maybe take hold of opposite elbows to create a little traction. Let your hands rest on the mat, palms up or palms down. Again, you can rest your hands on a yoga block if you'd like, or a stack of books. But again, just taking this forward bend. Focus on your breath. Another inhale and exhale here. Think of pressing evenly into the feet. Make sure there's a little bit more weight in the heels than in the toes. So make sure you're not tipping forward into your toes. And as we gently come out of this, again, we've been upside down for a few moments. So we want to make sure the blood flow doesn't crash back down too quickly from the head. So bring your hands to the tops of the thighs. And then begin to straighten the arms a little bit. And keep a little bend in the elbows just to lift the torso a little bit. So kind of coming into a half variation forward bend chair. And then straighten the elbows a little bit. And then press into the feet and come all the way up to stand. And if you'd like, you could do a little roll of the shoulders. So another variation of that, a little bit more active for the legs, is a wide-legged forward bend. So I'm going to step my feet wide. You can, if you'd like, especially if your feet are sliding, turn sideways on your mat for just position so you can see. I'm going to stay this in this orientation. But again, same thing as that forward bend, starting with the half standing forward bend. Soften the knees a little bit, take the pressure off the hamstrings, hinge at the hip, again, close here rather than rounding and doing this. So we're going to close the hinge of the hip, bring the hands forward onto the chair. So again, we're closing the angle of the body. This is a little bit more, because the legs are a little bit more active, maybe not quite as, still calming it can be calming for the mind if you focus on the breath, but again, a little bit more active pose here. Just inhaling and exhaling. Think full inhales and exhales in and out of the nose. Excuse me. And then depending on, again, your hamstrings, your back of the body, you can bring the hands, again, a little bit down towards the mat if you'd like. Again, keep that bend in the knee, keep that length in the back of the body. Or again, if this doesn't work for your body, that's what's great about yoga. All different variations of poses. You can keep the hands right on your chair or whatever you're using. Another breath here. And then slowly, if you have come all the way down, go ahead and bring yourself back up onto that support. And then just heel toe your feet in so they come back into a mountain pose. And then we'll do that same thing, just gradually coming up. So hands to the thighs, begin to straighten the arms, come up a little higher, and then press into the feet, come all the way up to stand. So one more little sequence here, now back down to the mat. So I'm going to just move my chair off to the, actually, you know what, I'm going to keep my chair because there's another variation I will show you. So this time we're going to sit on one of our blankets or cushion or whatever you have, legs extended forward. So I'm going to have my chair, you can use a little stool, whatever you have. So in this variation, we're going to do a seated forward bend. And we're going to bend both knees because, again, sometimes the hamstrings can inhibit our forward bend. And again, we're thinking more of this of a calming sequence, quieting for the mind rather than a stretch for the hamstrings. Because sometimes we want to stretch the hamstrings, so we're going to straighten the legs a little bit. But I'm going to do a nice bend to the knees. If you have something else to put behind your knees, you can place a little blanket or cushion back behind the knees. Flex the feet. So again, think of hinging at the hips. I'm going to start with my hands reaching forward onto the chair. Think of that nice release in the lower back. And as you're here for a few breaths, you might find your muscles soften a little bit. Maybe you release a little further. Maybe your hands come down if there's a rung on the chair or even down to the mat. But the important thing about this pose is, again, when we're focusing on calming the mind, quieting the mind, releasing tension in the back of the body, bend those knees, take a nice bend in the knee. Even if that's something that you don't necessarily need to do, if your hamstrings are pretty flexible, still think of letting the knees bend so we have more of a, again, calming practice here. Focus on your breath. Another inhale and exhale. And then again, pressing into the hands, begin to walk the hands back towards you, lengthen up through the crown of the head. And then one more variation here, seated forward bend. I'm going to just take my blanket out from behind the legs, and this time come into a cross-legged position, lift my sit bones up onto that blanket. I'm going to hinge at the hip, take a forward bend here. So again, I can start with my hands resting on the chair if I'd like. Think more of length in the spine. I can walk my hands down a little bit or just slide the chair out of the way. Again, here is the place where you can stack up the hands, resting the head on the hands, or use a yoga block or a stack of books or even that firm cushion that you have. Just inhales and exhales. And again, even though we're focusing on, again, calming, quieting the mind, stretching the back of the body, in a lot of these positions we've done, especially that wide knee child pose and the seated forward bend here, and even that standing wide-legged forward bend, we're still getting a release for the hips, which is great for us as equestrians. And then very gently, again, bringing the hands to the mat, just draw the belly in to support your lower back and gently bring yourself back up to seated. So there we have a sequence of poses that are helpful when you are have had a lot of stress in your day. This is a great sequence to do before you go to bed. Nice way to calm the body down, get a nice stretch of those muscles in the back of the body that may have been working a lot. throughout your day. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope to see you sometime soon in the saddle or on the mat. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and subscribe to my channel. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.